the panel, the discussion, an objective and impartial view of the issues of interest to you. Nation Beat is on now.
Hi and welcome to Nation Beat, a production of the Government Information Service and NTN. I am your host, Kendall Eugene. For today, we have the pleasure of sitting with the three-time Queen's Commonwealth Essay Competition National Awardee, Khadijah Halliday. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And Khadijah is currently studying clinical psychology, and her essays, which we are going to listen to in a few minutes, have earned her and our beautiful island gold awards. Khadijah, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's chat a little bit about you before we get into the essays, which I am sure a lot of our listeners and viewers will be most interested in not only listening to, but hearing how you recite your spoken word, and I really call it a talent to be able to write, but not only write, but recite what is written in a powerful way to get a reaction from your reader, your listener. It's a massive talent, but we'll come to that in a while. Let's find out more about who Khadijah is. Who is Khadijah Halliday?
Okay. Well, I'm currently 21 years old. I'm studying in the US right now in Oberlin College, which is a small liberal arts college. I'm studying, in addition to psychology, creative writing as well. My hopes are that I will become a clinical psychologist in the future and a professional writer. But my writing journey began at a very young age. I usually begin a lot of interviews when people ask me how did I begin, with the small anecdote that I began writing at a very, very young age. I fell in love with words at a very, very young age. My childhood years were spent going to school for 8 hours and then coming home to read for another 8. And after reading book after book, I had the epiphany that I didn't need to always be the one being inspired. I could be the one doing the inspiring. I was a very interesting child. I had a lot of tangible collections, but one of the collections that I guess rarely speak about because it's not so tangible was my collection of words. I've always had like this extreme, I would say, very peculiar fascination with words. I loved adding words to my vocabulary. I loved sounding out loud, advanced words for my age. And that was not a collection or an obsession, I would say, that left whilst I was in primary school or secondary school. That still continues to this day. I have a very strange relationship with words, and I think that that is something that does continue to fuel my passion for writing today.
Khadijah, in all my years interviewing, this is the first time someone has told me they have a strange collection of words. It's like a fascination of learning a new word every day. I have a collection of poems, I have a collection of books, but never a collection of words. That book you started writing in, do you still have it to this day?
I have all of my books.
Books?
Yeah. Yeah, I have several journals and notebooks at home. I've never thrown out a book that I've used for writing.
Why do you think you had such a fascination with learning new words?
I'm not too sure. I haven't been the most neurotypical child, neurotypical person on a whole, actually. But there's this phenomenon called synesthesia, where people actually, it's a very strange thing to describe. I'm probably not doing it justice here, but people experience other additional sensations when they're doing something that is not necessarily connected to it. So for example, some people might have like a color associated with a specific word, or a taste associated with something else. So for me, I don't know how it started, but I've had this sort of taste since I was very young, associated with sounding out different words and sounding out different vowels. So words like, I'll give you an example.
Please.
One of my favorite words is enigmatic. Not just because it's a fancy word, but like I don't know how else to describe it, but it tastes, it just feels right to me. Another word is surreptitious.
Excuse me?
Surreptitious.
Surreptitious.
Yes, so clandestine. Like I just, so I would just pronounce words growing up just for the fun of it. And right now, like I do engage in so many different types of creative writing, but my favorite is spoken word, and spoken word incorporates actually, paying attention to rhythm and sound and actual performance, and that is my favorite avenue of creative writing for an array of different reasons, but that particularly is one of those reasons. Like I get to be in a space where I'm doing what I love, but I'm also not just doing what I love because of any aim of inspiring, but also because I just love pronouncing words and articulating my words, and in addition to connecting with people. I
saw that in your very first video that you presented for the essay competition, the Queen's Commonwealth essay competition. And when you read out your essay, before that I was used to individuals reading out poems. And when I heard she has essays, I was like, oh, cool, let me listen to her. And when you read it out, it was almost like you were reading a poem, but you enjoyed it. You enjoyed bringing it out to the listening and viewing public. Is that what you mean when you say you like sounding out your words and you fall in love with what you do?
Yes, definitely. If you were to ask anybody I went to school with, to describe me, people probably say I'm a writer, but most people would say quiet, which is very true. I'm a very, very introverted person, very, very reserved to a very extreme. But that has, strangely enough, never affected me performing my poetry on stage. It has not affected my spoken word performance, because when I get on stage, actually, the moment from me leaving the audience to walking onto the stage, I feel like anxiety and nervousness, but from the moment I begin my poem to the moment I end my poem, within that space, it's almost like I'm inhabiting the words that I'm performing, I'm speaking, I'm connecting with. Like I embody the message, the sounds that I am speaking. So that definitely is some of it.
All right. Well, I think it's time we allow our viewers to at least listen to your first poem. Okay, now before I ask you anything about that first poem, we are going to all watch it together. We're going to listen and then we'll talk about it. Is that okay?
Yes.
That's all right. Okay, so let's check out her very first poem, the one that brought her first gold award in the Queen's Commonwealth essay competition.
Hello, my name is Khadijah Halliday, and this is the piece that I submitted for the 2018 Queen's Commonwealth Essay Competition. The title is The Road to a Safer Future. I believe that the road to a safer future is not paved with pretentious pronouncements. Neither is it laid by the passing of new laws, nor the skyscraping of highways of new leaders cemented in public pretenses. I believe that we have spent centuries cruising along the sidewalk to the road that leads to a safer future, pulverizing innocent pebbles, capsizing free-thinking flower pots, yelling antagonistic apologies for the dirt left behind. I believe that on the road to a safer future, it is ironic, increasingly so, that we focus the majority of our energy on the external commotion of traffic, the colors of the paints that color each vehicle, continuously choosing to disregard the blatant fact that we all innately carry the exact same fuel. I believe that the lone pedestrians trudging along at the edge of the road to a safer future are judged by their poverty and seldom by the vehicles that we rob from them by our reluctance to offer a ride. I believe that we religiously regard the tracks of white and yellow marks positioned strategically along the road, not recalling, it seems, to erase umbilical blueprints from past constructors and trace into the road our own. I believe that these are the century-old propensities that protect the erroneous allegation of the unattainability of a safer future. Evidently, it shows that the issue, in fact, is not inconsistency, but precisely its exact opposite, consistency. A repeated repetition of the exact same concession along the road. I believe with utmost conviction that the renovation of our routine-sensitive mindsets is the only avenue to gaining ground on the road to a safer future. Habitually, we address the carelessness of the drivers and seldom the stained windshields from which they look through. Mind you, on a day-to-day basis, generations of mentalities are pre-molded and marred in advance as per fault of the routine-based confines of the past. The road to a safer future? I believe that we misinterpret the signs at its sides. For instance, the ones that read stop, we completely crop out of our vision because we automatically associate stop with the direction for permanent delay when all it really is a prompt for a moment of reflection so that we can learn from our ways. I believe that we readily embrace the word shortcut because we refuse to grasp that it's just an illusion, non-existent and directly deceiving. And in the end, when we finally see it for what it really is, we take no blame and incriminate an innocent road for the dismal products of our own poor decision-making. I believe that the accidents and collisions that we get into along the road to a safer future are too hastily cleaned up, preventing us from absorbing the implications of the acts of speeding and disobedience and overtaking. I believe that the thousands of tragedies occurring at roundabouts aren't mere coincidences because it's at these roundabouts that we all exit from varying backgrounds and experiences and situations, and we've never been sufficiently taught to exhibit patience and understanding at such intimate intersections. I believe that we seldom adhere to the rules of the road because no one has ever sat us down and embedded the magnitudes of the fines issued as a result of rebellion and deviation. I believe that we crash into lampposts and tumble into traffic lights because we harbor the innate toddler-like tendency to topple off course even in the presence of light and clear direction. I believe that the most glaring and underrated sources of light are the lampposts located at the very beginning of the road to a safer future, in the form of innocence and curiosity and hope. I believe that these lights are the lights that we shield our eyes to because we've all been darkened by the tar coating this road, and the introduction of light to darkness now would be scary and unfamiliar and frightening. I believe that the real reason we fly nuclear obscenities out through the windows of our vehicles is not because we harbor hate for our fellow drivers, but because we aim to conceal the insecurity and lack of control we feel over the wheel. I believe that the real reason we wind our windows down to patronize passing drivers is not because they have persecuted us in any way, but because we all have this quiet embedded fear that by the time we find the safer future, our engines will be empty and our tanks bare. I believe that we each grew up promising to change things when we're old enough to reach the wheel, and that finally, when we are old enough, we forget those past dreams. I believe that the scratches and nicks we receive taint us more than we can see, and that no amount of paint can erase them, but at least we can still believe. I believe that on this road, on this journey to safety, we are never going to unanimously agree. I believe that we will all always drive at different speeds, but I believe that the ratio, irrespective of individual belief or hierarchical seat or driving speed, is eternally equivalent to potential and promise. I believe that the way we process the tickets we receive mentally is the key to driving more patiently in the future. And I believe most of all that we can't all expect to fit into one lane. Logically, it's impossible. But eventually, all individual lanes will lead to one junction called a safer future.
The road to a safer future. 2018 Gold Award. Tell us about your creative space when you were writing that essay.
Interestingly enough, I don't remember the details, but I don't really think that that's necessarily because of the distance of time. But this poem was actually an interesting poem in the sense that if you listen to it, it's very, very literary and erudite language, but I do remember the writing process being ironically not as difficult as it may seem. Once I decided on the concept that I wanted for it, because this was the first time that I had entered the Queen's Commonwealth essay competition, and I remember looking at the title. The title was connected to something about the road to a safer future. And I just stared at that phrase, the road to a safer future, the road to a safer future, trying to figure out how I could make this piece creative. And it just hit me to just read it at face value, the road to a safer future. Because I mean, at face value, like that prompt is calling for you to look at something more, larger. But I thought, okay, what if I actually keep it at face value and then expand on it? So for my piece, I decided to look at a literal road to think about our future, or at least the distance from the present to the future at a literal road, and to identify various elements and signage and just aspects on a literal road, like lamps and street lights and speed bumps, and to sort of parallel them with more abstract things. And yeah, that's how that piece was born. Once I realized that that's the direction I wanted to go with it, everything else kind of flowed out.
Okay. Yeah. How long does it take you to get into that creative drive, like get everything flowing?
Yeah, I'd like to say that there's a clear-cut answer for that, but there really isn't. It really depends on the type of day, the time of day, the state of mind. For that piece, ironically, I would say that it's actually getting more difficult to write nowadays, but I don't think that's because of the writing process itself so much as it is just life being hectic and busy and shrouded with
life being life.
Life being life.
Life being life.
But I always, like, when I'm experiencing writer's block, I'm not somebody who forces myself to sit down and make sure I get the words out. I allow myself to take the break that I need and come back. So
how important, and I'm so happy you mentioned that, is it for a writer to take breaks in between a project? Because I have a feeling that a lot of our young creatives believe that they should be churning out work, and not thinking that maybe I need to take at least a break or two. How important is it?
I spoke to this recently in a keynote speech that I did, and even like right now I'm studying creative writing. I feel like there's this atmosphere in the literary world, or not just an atmosphere, this is what a lot of professors will tell you, and writing professionals, that you should have a writing journal every day, and you should make sure you write in it every single day. You should not let the sun set without having written at least something. And if that works for some people, I think that's great, but personally for me, that hasn't worked, because with each day, there are just different challenges. I don't always have the same energy, I don't always have the same motivation, and I find that forcing myself or beating down on myself or not extending myself that grace and that compassion to allow for rest ends up doing more harm than good. So personally, I would advise to take a break when you need to, take a rest, but always return. So it's not that I'm saying like it's okay to give up, right? But I'm saying it's okay to rest, it's okay to take a pause, but at the end of the day, return to your work and see what comes out.
So important that you're saying that, especially with how influencers have taken over the social media space, and most of them would give their advice, and I have heard quite a few give the advice of, if you sleep, you lose out on life. If you sleep, you miss out on this and that. But not remembering that sleep is actually you resetting your body, you getting that recharge that you so richly deserve. We have 2 more essays to listen to, and we're going to do that right after the break. And when we come back, we're going to find out a little bit more about your inspirations. I'm very curious to know who inspires you as the creative. So after the break, we'll come back, we'll have a chat with Khadijah. She is, of course, the 3-time Queen's Commonwealth Essay Competition, the National Awardee, and today we are very pleased to have her in our presence. This is Nation Beat. We'll be back after this.
Oi, you realize you step on my toe?
Well, do something about it.
Gasai, bust in that man.
Hold on. If somebody try to cross you, and the mad things start to take you, no need for war or violence, cause the police there to help you. If a trouble start in this session, alright, no need for aggression. We don't want no violence in the place. Control your temper, respect each other. Don't let no trouble escalate, cause you know better. Control your temper, respect each other. Don't let no trouble escalate, cause you know better. Control your temper. A message from Mission Boys, Studio 758, Acid Creations, and the Royal St. Lucia Police Force.
It is so strange seeing my cartoon form in a commercial, and that's what I just saw a while ago. Looking at me, be like, oh, look, it's me. I'm here with Khadijah Halliday. Welcome back to Nation Beat, a production of the Government Information Service and NTN. Khadijah is our 3-time Queen's Commonwealth Essay Competition National Awardee. When she told me her the title, I had to applaud her because I am still practicing remembering that mouthful, and you did it like it's clockwork. Khadijah, I don't think I said congratulations though. That's bad. That's horrible. Congratulations on winning and making our island oh so proud.
Thank you.
And we enjoy boasting our awardees, our winners, anytime we get. Okay. However, we hardly know who inspires our winners, who inspires the awardees, and how do they get to where they are. So tell us a little bit about your inspiration before we jump into our second essay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, despite the obsession that I told you about with words. There was also, I think naturally, a lot of writers turn to writing for self-expression, which is valid and makes sense. But for me also, writing helped me escape a deep pit that I thought I wouldn't be able to come out mentally when I was younger. So I turned to writing sort of as an escape, a means of catharsis. Most of the spoken word that I do is actually centered about mental health advocacy, which is something else that I'm very, very passionate about. So I merge my writing, my creative writing, with my mental health advocacy, which birthed the creation of a version of myself online called Ash Speaks. I have a YouTube channel which is dedicated to that. I guess in general, I would say emotion. I also said that I'm a very introverted person, so despite like my own journey with mental illness and mental health struggles, I'm somebody who's very observant and very, very sensitive. And I found myself from a very young child observing and being the one that was listening rather than talking. So there was a lot that I picked up on or thought that I picked up on and interpreted. And being someone who was not very easily comfortable with people in social settings, and I didn't have the largest pool of friends, I would turn to my own journals as a means of processing what I was seeing or what I was interpreting or what I was feeling. So, and that continues to be, that definitely continues to be something today. I do continue to use my writing, particularly on Instagram. I use my Instagram page sort of as this diary that I allow the public to see. And my idea with that is, I'm not really sure how to put it into words, but I've always found it very freeing to be vulnerable in a public space once my words were packaged in some form of creative writing. So I like to say that Ash, which is Ash Speaks, is the unmasked version of Khadijah Halliday, because Ash Speaks allows me to write creatively but in a public space. And just generally the idea of connecting with people, because connection is something that I'm very passionate about, but it's kind of been hard for me as someone who's been very introverted. But I find that people, of course, welcome vulnerability, and for me, vulnerability is only possible when I'm writing. So having this sort of online space, this online platform that allows me to be vulnerable, allows me to connect, allows me to focus and advocate for healing. And in advocating for my own healing, I also advocate for others' healing. And that's one of the primary reasons that I want to be a clinical psychologist. I want to continue this sort of work, but more in a professional sense.
Professional setting.
Yeah.
Now, right. We're going to listen to your second essay now. Family, Community, Nation, Commonwealth. That one, I had to listen to it twice. Okay. And I can honestly say, if they ask me to choose which one I really like the most or put a favorite, I'll not put it 1, 2, 3, but I'll say, yeah, this one is a favorite of mine. All right, just because of the character I met in that essay. So let's take a listen to that one. And like we did with the first, we'll come back and chat a little bit about it.
Hello, my name is Khadijah Halliday and I attend Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. This piece that I'm about to perform was the piece that I submitted to last year's 2019 annual International Queen's Essay Commonwealth competition. The topic that I chose was Family, Community, Nation, Commonwealth. What are our opportunities for shared sustainable growth? The title of my piece is I am tiny, but I am hope. Hope, get down from there. I startle and look up at Mama for a bit. Merely grinning toothily, I decide to not listen. I continue in my attempts to climb the mountainous front desk, my hands making somewhat of a sticky mess on the walls of the desk as I do so. This most definitely isn't the first time that I am attempting to climb this front desk. We visit the hospital frequently. And yes, each time I giggle as the desk groans upon my arrival, but I don't think it really minds. The lady at the front desk sure doesn't. Neither does Mama. She stops me when she realizes that I'm about to hurt myself. Usually, that is. Sometimes when she's busy filling out piles of papers or talking to the lady at the front desk or arguing in hushed tones over the phone, I fall. But I'm learning. And all consequences have actions. That's what Mama says as she hurriedly, with a protective gentleness, dusts me off and blows a raspberry on my cheek. I don't mind the learning, even in those moments when salty rivulets are trickling down the rise of my cheeks. I am tiny, but I am big, and that's why I continue to climb. Hope Commonwealth. This, however, brings me to a halt. Commonwealth is my second name, but Mama only uses it when she needs me to listen. Mama doesn't wait for me to get down on my own. She swoops in and carries me away from whatever danger she believes I was in. The sudden whooshing movement tickles my insides and escapes in the happy form of bubbles of laughter. Mama looks down sternly at me, but her right side of her face too tickles with young laughter. That's enough learning for today, she decides, but not with any harshness. I am not upset. I understand that Mama wants the best for me, and that Mama has to protect me, and that Mama named me Hope first because that is what I am first to her. Hope. Miss Nation, the lady at the desk calls. Mama immediately looks up to her name and gifts the lady with a smile as we are given the indication to head on. Mama's soft smile probably seems soothing to the lady, but I feel the strain of it. Mama takes my sticky hand in hers, completely unbothered by the sticky mess I'm making. Together we walk. By now, my own 2 feet know the path by heart, but Mama never lets go of my hand. Mama never lets go. Mom, Mama greets quietly as we meet Grandma in the next waiting room. I can feel my face stretching to beam as Grandma opens her large, beckoning arms wide for me. I rush in eagerly, albeit clumsily, but she stabilizes me. Grandma stabilizes me. Despite having taken my first steps a few years ago, Grandma insists that I'm still learning to walk. Mama agrees with her. I want to as well, but I'm still understanding. Grandma hugs like a community. That's what Mama says. And Mama's smart, real smart. She has her own stethoscope, and it's real, not like the toy ones I have, I swear. But Mama says that none of her smartness matters. In fact, Mama says that sometimes she doesn't feel so smart. in less kind words when she's speaking to grandma alone and things that I can't hear. It doesn't matter that she's Dr. Nation at her fancy meetings, the ones in which she dresses up in her fancy suits that she lets me wear sometimes for fun. Mama says that none of that matters. Her true safety net is her mom, and grandma hugs like her community. So it makes sense to me. I love Mama, her smartness and her protecting me, but I also love and need what Mama got, grandma, the warm, yummy feeling that her hugs give. I need that feeling. As we approach the familiar giant door, grandma pauses for the tiniest bit before touching the doorknob. It's tiny, but I notice it. I'm tiny, but I notice things. Grandma looks at me and softens her face, teasingly sticking out her tongue at me. I giggle and stick my own out. But behind me, Mama's shallow breathing reminds me of what Grandma is trying to distract me from. They think they're protecting me. They don't want to expose me to the scary monsters of the world. I'm tiny, but I think. And I think that I need to meet the scary monsters now so that I can grow up understanding what I need to kill. I'm tiny, but I think. We enter, and we see her. Family. When I was even tinier than I am now, Mama had tried to explain the concept of a great-grandmother. Mama tried so hard to explain how she fit in the family. Hearing that word repeated so often, I called her just that, family. And yes, I'm old enough now, but family is what I've always known. Mama and Grandma used to be amused by this, but now they too sometimes slip and call her family. I'm frightened as I gaze at her body, connected to the machines that I don't know any of the names to, and there's a lot. I look at Mama, but she turns away, realizing that I'm staring at the lone rivulet trickling down her face. I wish she wouldn't. I'm tiny, but I need to know. I look at Grandma. I need to know, I tried to tell her. I need to know the pain of all the generations that gave birth to me. She understands a bit more than Mama. She allows me to gaze at, her own rivulets of tears before she crumples and has to turn away. I'm tiny, but I'm beginning to understand. Looking back at the bed, I approach family. I stare at her barely there hands. I had never seen them with my eyes, but I know Grandma has albums. Family used to be big, not chubby like me, massive. Her hands are barely there now, and her body is still, but her hands are shaking. Her hands occasionally twitch as she attempts to stop the shaking. Her attempts are familiar. I'm tiny, but I too shake sometimes. For example, when Mama's busy, never when she's looking. I want to make her proud. I want to make Grandma proud too. I'm their hope, but I too shake sometimes. I'm tiny, but I'm strong. Family's now tiny too, but no longer strong. My still somewhat sticky hands hug hers. Her hand hugs closer. Some of my quiet shaking becomes louder, while some of hers quiets. Are we both now shaking, or are we sharing? Her hand hugs tighter. My hands do too. The sticky mess of my hand doesn't bother her. She's family, and we need family. Mama says I'm tiny, but I am the future. Maybe, but we need family for the future. I can't let family die. I'm tiny, but without families, my name means nothing. There are no opportunities for shared growth. I won't let family die. Her eyes open, and immediately mine play hide and seek. Because I'm tiny, but all of a sudden, I'm heavy. Heavy by the hurt I see swarming through the broken irises of family. Stories of the past. Stories happening. I see mothers leaving and fathers drinking and children coping. I see pain. I see a lifetime of families breaking. I see a century of families losing families. I see families ending. I see how my family is ending. Her hand tightens around my hand. I thought we had shared all that we could, but I was wrong. I am tiny and I am wrong. I can't know all the pain of yesterday, even though I try. I want to make tomorrow better, but there's too much history. Is Mama right to turn away when she cries? Is Grandma curing us a little when she hugs? Family doesn't know. Neither do I. But this lack of answers is something we share. This search for answers is what we share. Family's hurting. And I'm not deaf to the stifled sobs from behind me. And I'm not ignorant to my innocence. But though I'm tiny, I hurt. I gaze into family's eyes. Her broken irises are coming together again. They're reflecting something. They don't have their own light. They're borrowing a light. What are you reflecting, family? Hope, she whispers. This is all I think about as we leave. Mama holding tightly onto my hand as the lady at the desk says, "Have a good day, Miss Nation," and Grandma hugging me like a community. As we pass it, I look back at the tall but no longer formidable height of the counter. I know I'll be back. And now family knows it too. I will climb again. I'm tiny, but I'm hope. Mama smiles softly down at me, hearing me mumble my name sleepily. Hope, Commonwealth.
Hope. I can tell you now, that's my favorite character. Because when I heard the essay, I immediately remembered my niece running up and down when she was a toddler, and my mom who will equally try to get her under control and say, "Hey, no, don't do that. Hey, no, don't do that." But the minute you say, "Hey, no, don't do that," she'll be doing the exact same thing. Okay, so basically your pieces compels the reader or the listener to put themselves in the shoes of your character. All right, and again, when I heard the name Hope, it basically had me thinking, yes, I know she's not really speaking about a human being, but I can't help but just imagine a little girl being that child, being Hope. Tell us about that essay and why the name Hope.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Rewatching it now, I'm trying to remember like what my thought process was when I wrote the piece. And although I can't connect with, again, the details, I do know that a lot of my pieces begin first with the emotion that I'm trying to convey, and then the sort of setting and the characters kind of flesh themselves out. For this essay, the prompt was, what are the realities for our shared growth? Something like that. And I just had the idea to personify 4 different entities. So the Commonwealth, nations, family, and hope. And in doing that and making each of these persons related by great-grandmother, grandmother, mother, and then daughter,
Yeah.
I'm kind of implying that there is a connection between these, like there is an inherent connection between all of these entities, and that hope is the most integral, her being the youngest, but also connected to what you were saying about your niece. I've always been very fascinated with hope as a concept. I did this documentary a while back about my own relationship with hope. I say documentary, but it was very self-directed. It was by myself. But
Your documentary.
yeah. So it was called Assassinating Hope.
Right.
So it was about me essentially realizing, I don't know, as I said, I was a very strange kid. I came up with this formula when I was younger that I didn't like feeling disappointment and all of the sadness and neuroticism that comes with disappointment. So I realized that whenever I hoped for something, that's when I would feel disappointed. So in order for me to get rid of disappointment and all those negative feelings, I would have to get rid of hope. So I went on this journey of trying to kill hope. So like never have any hope in any situation whatsoever. And I realized in doing so that I was essentially killing myself in the very most succinct way to put it. And then I came up with this other formula where it was me, hope, disappointment, that's just life. And I think that hope is something that's just very integral in any question about like our opportunities for shared growth as a nation, as a Commonwealth, as any sort of entity for the future, because hope is something that as much as you try to tame them, like you were saying with your niece, or as much as you try to assassinate it, like my documentary said, as much as you try to minimize it, like it doesn't die, it doesn't go away. Hope is always there hope is always there, and even if it does die temporarily, it always resurrects. And just like thinking about that resilience that comes with hope, that natural indomitable human spirit that comes with the idea of hope, I wanted to really make that come through in this piece. So in the final scene where we're seeing the great grandmother on the bed, although she's dying, there's this sort of internal monologue regarding just the connection of all entities, so the family's dying, and underneath that, so it just keeps it's supposed to be this sort of generational cyclical nature, but hope is supposed to make the decision that she's not going to watch, or she's not going to repeat the same mistakes as her predecessors. So yeah, that was the kind of idea that I had with the piece, but I was mainly thinking, I felt what I wanted the piece to convey, and then I worked backwards on fleshing out everything else.
Going backwards and fleshing out everything else. This is what you had me doing with your third piece. Thank you very much for giving me that headache. When you gave us the intro, and you guys will hear it in just a little while, she deliberately said, I'm going to do it in one way, it's going to have one meaning, and I'm paraphrasing here, and in another way, it's going to have a different meaning. And I was like, now I have a whole assignment to go and do. Okay, and that is that's going to take us into our next viewing for your third and final award-winning essay. It had to do with planet concept. And I thought to myself, is she going to speak on climate change? Is she going to speak on our current situations happening, how we're not taking care of the earth, and what do we need to do? And it had me very interested and very intrigued. So we're going to listen to the third essay right now, and then we're going to find out just how did you even think to come up with that ladder of a concept. Okay?
Yes.
Let's take in the third one.
Hello everyone, my name is Khadijah Halliday. I am a recent Sir Arthur Lewis Community College graduate. The topic that I chose for this year's competition was There is no Planet B. How will climate change affect you and your community? The title of my piece is Our Only Planet B is a Failed Planet A. This piece is a reverse poem, which means when I read it the first way, it's going to have one meaning, but then when I reverse it and read it the other way around, line by line, it will have a completely different meaning. So please pay attention to the end. Is a failed planet A our only planet B? The simple truth is that climate change is not a real issue for today. Only the delusional dare to declare that we absolutely have to change the way we live now. Such falsehoods are nothing more than fairy tales. The fate of the future primarily depends on only the people of the future. No blame belongs to the people of the present. It is completely unacceptable to say the opposite. Without an unwavering doubt, it is far more worthwhile doing the following. That is, just focusing on the problems we cause only if they affect us today, and just trusting that our children will handle the residue of our decisions all by themselves tomorrow. Imagine the sheer cruelty of depriving ourselves of maximum wealth for the sake of the maximum health of other lives besides our own. We should be thinking realistically. For the sake of the maximum quality of life for our humanity, it is imperative we understand that survival is selfishness, or in other words, to survive is to be selfish. How can one think that a Garden of Eden can be possible without the exile of half of Adam and Eve? Of course not. Tell me, is it misguided to believe that everything must come at a cost, and that in this particular case, the earth just has to be that cost, and that this is simply the way the rule works? In spite of this known truth, the stubborn will still contest this by insisting that some rules are meant to be broken. Well, it's too bad for them that everything coming at a cost is the superior rule of life. Not one person can counter otherwise. Experts say that there will come a time some islands will not survive the increased sea levels, some species will not survive the increased global warming, and some people will not survive the increased epidemic occurrence. Sadly, but certainly, significant success is never without significant sacrifice. Significant expansion is never without significant annihilation. If you are not going to comprehend this and contemplate the bigger picture, it is just plain ignorant for you to insist that for absolutely no good reason, entire ecosystems and biomes and habitats are suffering without worthy cause and without noble purpose and without clear intention. How could anyone agree to such nonsense? Isn't our ideal standard of living the result of all this destruction? It is frustrating that there is still so much resistance to this obvious truth. Be part of the right revolution. We shouldn't fight for the animals like they are our equals, and fight for the trees like they won't grow back, and fight for the unborn like they are already born. Blind dreamers, not big dreamers, dare to believe wholeheartedly that preservation of the environment is preservation of all humanity. This is just naivety, not hope, but hopelessness. It is impractical to trust in our capacity for change. Too many of us keep miscalculating the trauma we ensue in the name of advancement, while severely understating our planet's ability to heal itself. We put too much unrealistic trust in our conscience and our morals and our humanity. We must never compromise maximum advancement for our race. We should not be in any kind of confusion about this. Why is there still so much ignorance? We need to forget about being sustainable and concede to the principle, survival of the fittest. It is mindless to say things like, to remember we are not the only human is to ensure that we stay human. Progress always trumps collateral, especially if collateral means the fate of people who don't yet exist. Undoubtedly, it is just absurd to believe that the term humanity incorporates everyone, including those who are not yet born. This is the simple truth. Now I shall read the poem the other way around, and it will have a completely different meaning. This is the simple truth. The term humanity incorporates everyone, including those who are not yet born. Undoubtedly, it is just absurd to believe that progress always trumps collateral, especially if collateral means the fate of people who don't yet exist. To remember we are not the only human is to ensure that we stay human. It is mindless to say things like, we need to forget about being sustainable and concede to the principle survival of the fittest. So much ignorance. Why is there so confusion about this? We should not be in any kind of race for maximum advancement. We must never compromise our conscience and our morals and our humanity. We put too much unrealistic trust in our planet's ability to just heal itself while severely understating the trauma we ensue in the name of advancement. Too many of us keep miscalculating our capacity for change. It is impractical to trust in hopelessness, but not hope. This is just naivety. Big dreamers, not blind dreamers, dare to believe wholeheartedly that preservation of the environment is preservation of all humanity. Shouldn't we fight for the animals like they are equals, and fight for the trees like they won't grow back, and fight for the unborn like they are already born? Be part of the right revolution. It is frustrating that there is still so much resistance to this obvious truth. The result of all this destruction is not our ideal standard of living. How could anyone agree to such nonsense? Without clear intention and without noble purpose and without worthy cause, entire ecosystems and biomes and habitats are suffering for absolutely no good reason. If you are not going to comprehend this and contemplate the bigger picture, it is just plain ignorant for you to insist that significant success is never without significant sacrifice and that significant expansion is never without significant annihilation. Sadly, but certainly, there will come a time some islands will not survive the increased sea levels, some species will not survive the increased global warming, and some people will not survive the increased epidemic occurrence. Experts say that everything coming at a cost is the superior rule of life. Not one person can counter otherwise. Well, it's too bad for them that some rules are meant to be broken. In spite of this known truth, the stubborn will still contest this by insisting that everything must come at a cost, and that in this particular case, the earth just has to be that cost, and that this is simply the way the rule works. Tell me, is it misguided to believe that a Garden of Eden can be possible without the exile of half of Adam and Eve? Of course not. How can one think that to survive is to be selfish, or in other words, survival is selfishness? Thinking realistically, for the sake of the maximum quality of life for our humanity, it is imperative we understand that we should be depriving ourselves of maximum wealth for the sake of the maximum health of other lives besides our own. Imagine the sheer cruelty of just trusting that our children will handle the residue of our decisions all by themselves tomorrow, and just focusing on the problems we cause only if they affect us today. Without an unwavering doubt, it is far more worthwhile doing the following. That is, the opposite. It is completely unacceptable to say no blame belongs to the people of the present, only the people of the future. Such falsehoods are nothing more than fairy tales. The fate of the future primarily depends on the way we live now. We absolutely have to change. Only the delusional dare to declare that climate change is not a real issue for today. The simple truth is that our only planet B is a failed planet A.
Planet B is a
Failed.
yeah. So our only planet B.
Is a failed planet A.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Because you never need a plan B if your plan A is solid.
Yeah.
But we don't take care of planet A. You gave us a ladder to deal with. We go up, then we come back down. Why did you choose that format?
Yeah. Well, we know that, climate change exists, but there's still, a host of people who don't believe that it does. And I was just really focused on that binary when I was writing the piece. And I kept thinking, okay, our only planet B is a failed planet A. And for some reason, I switched it around. I was like, is our only planet B a failed planet A? I had just switched it around. I was like, what if I was to write the piece and switch around the entire piece to have the other perspective? So I have the piece being read one way as coming from someone who does not believe in climate change, and then when I read the piece the other way, what if I have the piece reading as somebody who does believe in climate change? So yeah, that was the thought process behind that piece. It's called a reverse poem. I've read them before in my literature journey. I've never tried one. It was extremely taxing. It was like I had to write each line on a paper. It's kind of hard to describe. You'd have to actually try to write it to see how difficult it is. Right. But you'd have to write each line, not each line, each phrase on a paper, and then you had to spread it out on the floor and jigsaw each piece until you could read it one way and then backwards the other way with it making sense. It was, it became a sort of arts and craft project, but it was an interesting piece.
It was.
Yeah.
It really was. And when I listened to it, I thought to myself, if she was my English A teacher, I would struggle to get at least 89% in her class. Not even 89%, because she would be challenging me every day. And you challenge yourself every day, don't you?
Yes, I would like to think so.
What takeaways would you have loved for individuals to have obtained from your essay, especially the last one we just listened to?
The last essay?
The planet B and the planet A.
I guess in general, this is kind of more generalized advice, but as I said, one of my main aims with writing all of my pieces is connecting with someone, and as someone who's tried to bring my writing to a public space with Ash Speaks and just Khadijah in general, with sharing your work, there's always this sort of worry and doubt that comes with reaching as many people as, because ideally you want to reach more than one person, but I think the encouragement that I would give to a lot of writers is to not negate or to not minimize or discount connecting with one person, because one human being is like an entire system of idiosyncrasies and personality and quirks and hobbies and tendencies and history. So to connect with even something singular, but something so vast is a major feat. It's a major accomplishment. So I would just encourage people to, especially like when you're performing, connect with one person from up on stage, and even when you're writing, write with the audience of one in mind. Try to get to that one person. I think that that's what I would. That's
the takeaway.
Yeah.
Before we take ourselves away, I would like you to just give us a small treat today. Now, that one was totally off script. All right, folks. When we saw her poems, her essays, we immediately thought to ourselves, she's reading this off the top of her head. Spoken word artists normally do that. And I'm sure you have a poem or two in your head you can recite at will. Think you can give us just a little snippet of something you're working on?
Yes, I have a piece coming out regarding colorism, my experience as a dark-skinned woman growing up in St. Lucia, the Caribbean, but also very much inspired by my younger sisters who are also dark-skinned, and just sisters in a more general sense. Just dark-skinned friends, dark-skinned relatives, dark-skinned people I don't even know. So the piece is entitled Black Skin. It's supposed to premiere before the month ends, so watch out for that on Ash Speaks and Calabash TV. So I'm just gonna perform a few lines from it.
Thank you.
Okay. This is a poem about growing up with black skin. No, not brown skin, not fair skin, not the lightness belonging to a shabin. I'm talking dark, rich, melanated, glistening skin that ignited itself in the sun, that in spite of me trying to inspire myself to overcome, I cannot expunge myself, loathing for it. This is not a poem about self-love. This is a poem about the psychological displacement, self-hatred, which started in school with me witnessing kids with skin the same color as mine get shredded by bullying, whilst I stood by and did nothing out of terror of being identified as even uglier than I had already thought that I was. I had already been taught that I was. I did nothing. This is a poem about that time in third form that girl looked me dead in the eyes as I walked past her. She said to me with the familiar conviction of a Pentecostal pastor, you look like a neg, R-word, donkey. And I was merely walking to class. Do you see? This is not a poem about growing up black. This is a poem about growing up with black skin, which is a different thing. This is a different thing. For me, it was everything as a kid. It was insecurity and insanity all at once. It was me quickly getting used to being the dark, ugly duckling in every friend setting. It was those same friends being terrified to look like me. It was my obsession with overpriced lightning creams. It was me giving up an entire tennis scholarship because sports would mean sun, and sun would mean rays, and rays would mean me risking more blackness. Shit. This is a poem about some serious pain. This is a... And I'll leave it there.
Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, our 3-time Queen's Commonwealth Essay Competition National Awardee, Khadijah Halliday. Thank you so much for joining Nation Beat today.
Thank you for having me.
Wish you all the best, especially in your studies.
Thank you.
And we hope to hear a lot more from you in the coming weeks.
Thank you.
Okay. This has been Nation Beat. I am your host, Kendall Eugene, a production of the Government Information Service and NTN. You have a good day.
The panel, the discussion, an objective and impartial view of the issues of interest to you. Nation Beat is on now.